The grand hall of the Vorn High Command fell silent as Admiral Rex entered. His steps echoed against the cold metal floor, each sound marking his path toward judgment. The circular table before him seated the 12 most powerful beings in the Vorn Empire. Their gray skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and their 4 eyes, too large, too small, tracked his every move. "Explain your failure," Supreme Commander Draz said. His voice carried no emotion, which made it more frightening. Rex stood tall despite his wounds. The battle with the human ship had left him with a burned arm and a damaged pride. "The human vessel was not what we expected," Rex began. "Our scans showed primitive technology, but their weapons—" He paused, remembering the blinding flash that had destroyed 2 of his scout ships. Their weapons were far more powerful than their technology level suggested possible. A hologram appeared in the center of the table, showing the Earth ship Defiance. It looked clunky and crude compared to the sleek Vorn ships. "This outdated collection of metal and wires defeated 3 of our scout vessels?" asked Military Council member Kev. His voice dripped with disbelief. "Yes," Rex admitted. "And when we damaged it, they did not retreat. They fought harder. Science." Director Tull moved her long fingers over a control panel. The hologram changed to show data streams. "The scan data is concerning," she said. "Their ship uses nuclear power, an energy source we abandoned centuries ago, yet they've weaponized it in ways we never considered. They use no safety protocols by our standards." Kev leaned forward. "What of their behavior patterns?" Tull displayed another set of data. "We intercepted their communications during the battle. Their language is simple, but their responses to danger are not. When outmatched, their brain chemistry changes. Instead of fear leading to retreat, it triggers aggression and problem-solving." The room grew quieter still. "How many ships do they have?" asked Draz. "Based on our scans of their system, we estimate under 500 war vessels," answered Tull. "Technologically inferior to even our smallest fighters. And yet they defeated your squadron," Draz reminded Rex. "Numbers mean nothing if their behavior cannot be predicted by rational models." Rex lowered his head. "The human captain, he did something no Vorn would ever do. When we targeted their engine section, he turned the damaged part of his ship toward us and accelerated. He used his own damaged vessel as a weapon." Murmurs filled the room. "Prepare the war fleet," Draz finally ordered. "These humans must be dealt with before they become a true threat." Captain Jack Miller of the Earth. Warship Defiance stared at his reflection in the small mirror of his quarters. A fresh cut ran across his forehead, and dried blood caked his short brown hair. The battle had been close, too close. A knock on his door broke his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Anna Davis stepped in, her uniform torn but her posture perfect. "Sir, Earth Command is requesting our full report. They're calling an emergency meeting of all fleet captains." Miller nodded. "Tell them we're on our way. How's the ship?" "Engineer Ross says the main drive is at 60%. Weapons are operational, but shields won't hold against another attack like the last one." Miller grabbed his jacket. "And the crew?" 7 dead, sir. 19 injured. Everyone else is shaken but ready." Miller closed his eyes for a moment, adding 7 more names to the weight he carried. "Those alien ships. They were just scouts, weren't they?" Davis nodded. "According to Ross's analysis, yes. Probably an advanced recon team. So there's more coming." "It wasn't a question. Many more, sir." Miller followed Davis to the bridge. The normally bright space was now running on emergency power. Screens flickered and repair crews worked on damaged stations. Through the main viewport, Earth looked small and vulnerable. "Captain on the bridge," someone called out. "As you were," Miller said. "Get me Earth Command." The main screen filled with the stern face of Admiral Stone. "Miller, you look like hell." "Feel like it too, sir. Your encounter confirms what we feared. We are not alone, and we are not welcome." Stone's face was grim. "The Security Council is meeting now. Every nation is contributing ships to a unified defense fleet." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Every nation, sir?" This isn't about borders anymore, Captain. It's about species survival. Stone looked down at something off-screen. We're forming a defense line at Neptune's orbit. All available ships are being recalled and refitted based on your encounter data. The Defiance is damaged, sir. We'll need at least... You have 48 hours for essential repairs. Then you're needed at the fleet rendezvous. Your experience with these aliens makes you too valuable to keep docked. Miller straightened. Understood, sir. And Miller? That maneuver you pulled, using your damaged section as a battering ram. The brass is calling it reckless. It worked, sir. Stone's face softened slightly. Yes, it did, and it gave us something important. What's that, sir? It showed that these aliens, for all their technology, don't understand how humans fight when cornered. Stone leaned closer to the screen. Get your ship ready, Captain. Humanity is counting on you. The screen went dark. Miller turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. We have 48 hours to get the Defiance battle ready. Sir, Engineer Tom Ross spoke up from where he was fixing a control panel. He was a large man with hands that seemed too big for delicate work, yet he handled ship components with surprising grace. I've been studying the scan data we collected on their shields. I think I might have found something. Miller moved to Ross's station. What kind of something? Ross pulled up a diagram on his screen. Their shields operate on frequencies we've never used, but they have a pattern. If we retune our weapons to hit these specific harmonic points, he pointed to several spots on the diagram. Lieutenant Davis leaned in. We could cause cascading failures in their defensive systems, Ross nodded. Exactly. It's like finding the resonant frequency of a wine glass. Hit it just right and it shatters. Miller studied the diagram. How long to modify our weapon systems? With a full engineering team and no interruptions? Maybe 36 hours. You have 30, Miller said. And Lieutenant Davis? Sir? Work with Ross. I want our sensor array recalibrated to detect their ships even when they're using that cloaking technology. Davis looked surprised. Is that possible? Ross scratched his beard. Everything leaves a signature. We just need to know what to look for. And now we do. Miller looked around at his tired, wounded crew. Each face showed fear, but also determination. Humans had been fighting against the odds since they first picked up stones against larger predators. This was just one more impossible fight. We have 2 days to turn this ship into something those aliens aren't expecting, Miller told them. Because when we meet them again, they'll be ready for what they saw last time. So we need to be something new. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Miller looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to attack his world. They had better technology, probably better training, and likely overwhelming numbers. But they had made one critical mistake. They had attacked humans and expected them to behave logically. They had scanned Earth's warships, but failed to understand what made humans the most dangerous species they would ever encounter: an unbreakable will to survive, and the creative spark to turn disadvantage into victory. The real battle was coming, and this time, humanity would be ready. Science Director Tull moved through the Vorn research chamber with quick, precise steps. The walls around her displayed hundreds of data streams, all information collected from the brief but costly encounter with the human warship. Show me their communication patterns again, she ordered. The main screen shifted to display waveforms and language samples. Tull's 4 eyes narrowed as she studied the data. These humans rely heavily on electromagnetic signals, she noted to her assistant. Primitive but effective for their level of development. Her assistant, a younger Vorn named Lear, touched a control panel. We've analyzed their shield harmonics as well. They're using basic deflection patterns, nothing like our phase-shifted barriers. Tull's mouth formed what passed for a smile among her kind. A weakness we can exploit. The door to the chamber slid open, and military strategist Kev entered. Unlike most Vorn, whose gray skin was smooth, Kev's face bore marks of past battles, a rarity in a species that prided itself on fighting from a distance. Have you found a way to destroy them easily? Kev asked, his voice carrying a hint of sarcasm. Tull gestured to the screens. Their technology is primitive. Their communications can be disrupted. Their shields are basic. Kev moved to a different display and touched it. The screen changed to show images from Earth's information networks, what humans called the Internet. The Vorn had been monitoring it for months. Before you celebrate an easy victory, Kev said, look at this. He brought up historical records of human conflicts. These creatures have been killing each other for their entire recorded history. They adapt during warfare at a rate that defies prediction. He pointed to various images. In one of their global conflicts, they went from basic flying machines to jets that could break their sound barrier in just 6 years. Tull waved a dismissive hand. That was their past. Their technology advancement has slowed. Has it? Kev pulled up more recent data. Their civilian technology companies now produce new communication devices yearly. They've mapped their own genome and are beginning genetic modifications. They've even created primitive artificial intelligence. Still centuries behind us, Tull insisted. Kev's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of frustration. It's not their current level that concerns me. It's their rate of advancement when threatened. He turned to face Tull directly. We damaged one ship and now they know we exist. What will they become in the time it takes our main fleet to reach their world? Tull had no answer for that. Engineer Tom Ross wiped sweat from his forehead as he made the final adjustments to the Defiance's sensor array. The narrow maintenance tunnel was hot, and his large frame barely fit in the space. Hand me the phase coupler, he called out. Lieutenant Anna Davis passed the tool through the narrow opening. How much longer? She asked. Captain wants a progress report. Ross grunted as he connected several wires. Almost there. This is delicate work. One wrong connection and we'll fry the whole array. No pressure, Davis said with a slight smile. Ross chuckled despite his discomfort. The trick was figuring out what to look for. Those alien ships don't just bend light around themselves. They shift their energy emissions to frequencies we weren't monitoring. A spark flew from the panel and Ross swore. Everything okay in there? Davis asked. Fine, just a discharge. Ross made a final adjustment. That should do it. Let's test it. He crawled out of the maintenance tunnel, his uniform soaked with sweat. Together they moved to a nearby console. Computer, run diagnostic on modified sensor array, Davis commanded. The screen lit up with scrolling data. It's working, Ross said, his voice rising with excitement. The modifications are stable. Davis studied the readout. So if the aliens show up using the same cloaking technology, we'll see them clear as day, Ross finished. And they won't know we can see them. Davis tapped her communicator. Davis to Captain Miller. The sensor modifications are complete and operational. Miller's voice came through. Good work. Both of you report to the bridge. We're approaching the rendezvous point. When they arrived, on the bridge, the view through the main screen took their breath away. Dozens of Earth warships were gathered in a loose formation near Neptune's orbit. Ships of all sizes and designs, some hastily converted from civilian vessels, others pulled from various national fleets, now formed humanity's main line of defense. Captain Miller stood at the center of the bridge, studying a tactical display. He looked up as Ross and Davis entered. Engineer Lieutenant, your timing is perfect. He gestured to the screen. Welcome to the Human Defense Fleet. Ross whistled. I've never seen so many ships in one place. 87 vessels, Miller said. With more on the way, but it won't be enough if we fight conventionally. He turned to Ross. Your sensor modifications, can they be applied to the other ships? Ross nodded. The principle is simple once. You know what to look for. We can transmit the specifications to the fleet. And the weapons recalibration? Miller asked. That's more complicated, Ross admitted. Each ship class has different weapon systems. They'll need individual adjustments. Miller frowned. We don't have time for that. Lieutenant Davis stepped forward. Sir, what if we create teams? We have the prototype working on the Defiance. We could send engineering teams to help the other ships implement the modifications faster. Miller considered this. Good idea, Lieutenant. Make it happen. He turned back to the tactical display. Admiral Stone is calling a command meeting in 1 hour. I want to present him with more than just defensive options. Sir? Davis looked confused. These aliens came to our home and attacked without provocation, Miller said. I don't want to just survive their next attack. I want them to regret ever finding us. Ross cleared his throat. Captain, I've been studying the data from our engagement. Their ships are advanced, but they follow predictable attack patterns, almost like they're following a script. How does that help us? Miller asked. It means they're not used to improvising in battle, Ross explained. They rely on superior technology, not tactical flexibility. Miller's eyes lit up with understanding. So we give them something they're not expecting. Exactly, Ross said. If we can share not just the technical modifications but our battle data with the fleet, we might be able to create coordinated counter-strategies. Miller nodded and turned to his communications officer. Contact Admiral Stone. Tell him the Defiance has developed both technical and tactical countermeasures against the alien threat. As the officer carried out his orders, Miller looked out at the assembled fleet. The aliens think they know what they're facing, he said quietly. They scanned our ships, measured our weapons, and decided we were easy targets. What their scans couldn't show them was our greatest strength. What's that, sir? Davis asked. Miller turned to her with a grim smile. Humans don't play by the rules when our survival is at stake, and we're about to change all the rules. Out in the darkness beyond Neptune, undetected by the fleet's standard sensors, a small Vorn observation craft watched the gathering of human ships. Inside, an observer recorded everything, preparing to take the intelligence back to the approaching Vorn warfleet. The observer had no way of knowing that, thanks to Engineer Ross's modifications, the Defiance could now see the supposedly invisible scout ship. The humans had gained their first advantage in a war that was about to begin. Fleet Lord Mez stood on the command platform of the Vorn flagship Inevitable Victory. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, preparing for what would surely be a quick and decisive battle. Status report, Mez ordered. All ships in position, Fleet Lord, his second-in-command responded. 200 warships ready for attack. Cloaking systems active. Human fleet remains unaware of our presence. Mez studied the tactical display showing the gathered human ships. Their formation was loose and disorganized. Exactly what he expected from a primitive species thrown suddenly into space combat. Their defenses are still being organized, Mez noted with satisfaction. This is the perfect time to strike. He straightened his tall frame and addressed the bridge crew. The Supreme Commander has given us a simple task. We will eliminate this human fleet and open the path to their homeworld. Our superior technology and tactical invisibility guarantee our victory. The crew responded with the traditional Vorn battle salute, right hands forming fists against their chests. Begin the attack sequence, Mez ordered. First wave, decloak, and engage. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Miller was in the middle of a strategy session with other ship captains when an alarm sounded. Sir, the sensor officer called out. Multiple contacts appearing at coordinates 227 by 104. Lieutenant Davis rushed to the sensor station. The modified sensors are picking up energy signatures consistent with Vorn vessels. They're decloaking. Miller turned to the communications screen where the faces of a dozen ship captains showed varying degrees of alarm. This is not a drill, Miller said calmly. Implement the modifications we've shared and assume battle positions. Remember your assignments. As the other captains acknowledged his orders, Miller turned to his bridge crew. Battle stations, execute Plan Thunderbolt. Across the human fleet, ships began to move with surprising coordination. Instead of scattering in panic or forming a traditional defensive line, they broke into smaller groups, each with specific targets. On the Vorn flagship, Fleet Lord Mez watched in confusion as the human vessels began to move before his ships had fully decloaked. Impossible, he muttered. They cannot see us until... Fleet Lord, his sensor officer interrupted. The humans are targeting our ships. They're firing directly at our positions. Mez's four eyes widened in shock as he watched human weapons fire streak toward his still decloaking vessels. How did they?
His question was cut short as the first Vorn ships reported direct hits. On his tactical display, 3 of his scout
vessels were already showing critical damage. Full decloak, all ships return fire, Mez ordered. The space around Neptune's orbit lit up with energy weapons and explosions as both fleets engaged. What should have been a surprise attack had turned into a chaotic, head-on battle. Direct hit on the lead Vorn cruiser, Davis reported, a hint of excitement breaking through her professional tone. Miller nodded. Keep firing. Concentrate on target group Alpha. The Defiance shuddered as it took a hit from a Vorn destroyer. Shields holding at 64%, the defensive systems officer reported. Miller watched as the human fleet executed the battle plan they had prepared. Smaller, faster ships darted between the larger Vorn vessels, drawing fire and creating openings for the heavier human warships to target critical systems. "Sir, Admiral Stone's flagship is signaling," the communications officer announced. Admiral Stone's stern face appeared on screen. "Miller, your modifications are working. The Vorn didn't expect us to see them coming." "Yes, sir. We've caught them, by surprise, but they still outgun us." Stone nodded. "Then it's time for Phase 2. The Defiance will lead the charge against their command ship." Miller's expression remained calm, but his voice tightened. "Understood, sir. We're on our way." The communication ended and Miller turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for the Vorn flagship. All weapons. Prepare for maximum output." Fleet Lord Mez could not believe what was happening. His carefully planned ambush had fallen apart in minutes. The humans were not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine. Their smaller ships were sacrificing themselves to create openings in his formation, while their larger vessels targeted his key command ships with weapons that somehow penetrated Vorn shields more effectively than should be possible. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice was strained. "They've modified their weapons to match our shield frequencies, and somehow they detected us through our cloaking fields. Impossible. They cannot have adapted." So quickly, Mez slammed his fist on the command console. "Sir," the sensor officer interrupted, "a group of human ships is breaking through our forward line. They're heading directly for us." Mez focused on the tactical display. Sure enough, a wedge of human vessels was pushing through his defenses, taking heavy damage but advancing relentlessly. At their head was a familiar ship, the same one that had survived their first encounter. "Target that lead ship," Mez ordered. "All available weapons." The Defiance rocked violently as Vorn weapons fire concentrated on it. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, shields down to 31%. The defensive systems officer shouted over the noise of straining systems. "Engine 3 is offline," Ross reported from engineering. "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Miller gripped the arms of his command chair as another hit shook the ship. "Hold course. All power to forward shields and main weapons. Lieutenant." Davis looked up from her tactical display. "Sir, we're not going to break through their defensive screen. There are too many ships between us and their flagship." Miller studied the battle for a moment. Then a grim smile formed on his face. "Then we give them something else to worry about." He hit his comm link. "Miller to all strike group ships. Execute maneuver Trojan." Davis's eyes widened as she realized what he was planning. "Captain, that's the only way we break their line," Miller finished for her. "Do it." Throughout the strike group, ship captains acknowledged the order. The formation of human ships suddenly broke apart, each vessel targeting different Vorn ships around the flagship. "Sir, what are you doing?" Admiral Stone's voice came through, alarmed. "Creating a diversion, Admiral," Miller replied. "While they focus on us, your heavy cruisers can target their flagship from the flank." The Defiance suddenly accelerated, aiming directly at a weak point in the Vorn formation. Mez watched in confusion as the human attack pattern disintegrated. "They're breaking off the attack," his tactical officer reported with relief. "No," Mez said slowly, understanding dawning. "They're not retreating, they're dispersing to attack multiple targets." Before he could issue new orders, alarms blared across the bridge. "Heavy weapons fire from Sector 7, the sensor officer shouted. "Human heavy cruisers approaching from behind our defensive line." On the tactical display, Mez watched as a separate group of human ships that had hidden behind Neptune now emerged, firing directly at his command ship. The dispersed attack group had been a diversion to draw his attention away from this flanking maneuver. "Increase power to rear shields," Mez ordered, but it was too late. The human cruiser's concentrated fire tore through the flagship's weakened defenses. The bridge shuddered violently as systems failed throughout the ship. "Fleet Lord," his second-in-command reported, voice shaking. "We've lost drive control and weapons. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Mez stared at the battle display in disbelief. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The humans had turned his ambush into a trap of their own. "Signal the retreat," he said quietly. "All ships to fall back and regroup at Rally Point Sigma." As the Vorn ships that could still maneuver began to withdraw, Mez looked again at the tactical display. The human vessel Defiance was still fighting, despite heavy damage. Its captain had led the diversionary attack personally, risking destruction to create an opening for the main strike. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Lord Mez felt something unfamiliar: doubt. The Vorn had ruled space in this sector for centuries. No species had ever defeated a Vorn battle fleet until today. The grand chamber of the Vorn Supreme Council echoed with angry voices. 12 tall chairs arranged in a circle contained the most powerful beings in the Vorn Empire. At the center, Fleet Lord Mez stood with his head slightly bowed, a position of shame among his kind. Supreme Commander Draz's voice cut through the noise. "Silence." The room fell quiet immediately. "Fleet Lord Mez has lost 37 warships to a primitive species," Draz stated coldly. "This is unprecedented in our 10,000 years of expansion." Mez spoke without raising his head. "The humans had unexpected capabilities. They detected our cloaked ships and modified their weapons to penetrate our shields." Science Director Tull leaned forward in her chair. "Impossible. They cannot have developed such technology so quickly." "And yet they did," military strategist Kev pointed out. "Just as I warned they might." Draz stood, towering over Mez. "You are relieved of your command, Fleet Lord. Return to your homeworld in disgrace." As guards led Mez away, Draz addressed the council. "This human problem requires our full attention. I am declaring total war against humanity. We will mobilize our entire military might." One council member spoke up. "Is that necessary? They are confined to a single system." "For now," Draz replied. "But a species that can adapt so quickly to our technology poses an existential threat if allowed to expand. We will crush them completely." He turned to another council member. "Send emissaries to our allied species. Inform them that these humans represent a danger to galactic stability." Kev stood from his seat. "Supreme Commander, I recommend we study their tactics further before committing our main fleets. They fight differently." Draz's four eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They don't follow logical battle progressions," Kev said. "They sacrifice ships to create tactical advantages. Their captains take personal risks that no Vorn commander would consider. This makes their movements unpredictable." "Then we will overwhelm them with numbers," Draz decided. "Prepare the armada, all available ships." In the Oval Office of the White House, President Laura Coleman faced the leaders of Earth's major nations on a series of large screens. The mood was somber but determined. "The Battle of Neptune bought us time," Coleman said. "But our intelligence suggests the aliens, the Vorn, are mobilizing on a massive scale." The Chinese premier nodded. "Our scientists are working day and night on the alien technology we recovered from damaged ships, as are ours," replied the Russian president. "But centralized research is too slow. We need a new approach." Coleman stood and paced the room. "That's exactly what I wanted to discuss. The old way of military research, secret labs, classified projects, won't work fast enough." She pressed a button on her desk, and a new face appeared on the screens, a young woman with short hair and intense eyes. "This is Dr. Helen Wright, a physicist from Carleton University in Canada. Doctor, please share your idea with everyone." Dr. Wright cleared her throat. "Thank you, Madam President. I've been studying the Vorn shield technology data that was distributed to research teams worldwide. Their approach to energy fields is fundamentally different from ours." She displayed a complex diagram. But I discovered something unusual. By inverting their shield principles and combining them with our own approaches, we can create a hybrid system that's actually more effective than either technology alone. The German chancellor leaned forward. You've developed a better shield than the aliens who have had this technology for centuries? Yes, Wright said simply, because I wasn't constrained by their way of thinking. Their shields are elegant but follow very strict engineering principles. My approach is messier but more effective. President Coleman took over. Dr. Wright was working at a small university lab, not one of our major military research facilities. And therein lies my proposal. We distribute the Vorn technology data to every research team on Earth. Military, civilian, academic, private sector, everyone. The Japanese Prime Minister looked shocked. That goes against all security protocols. Exactly, Coleman replied. The Vorn expect us to behave like them, centralized, hierarchical, predictable, but humanity's greatest strength is our diversity of thought. She looked at each leader in turn. We need to unleash humanity's full creative potential. Thousands of teams working in parallel will develop innovations no single approach could discover. After a moment of silence, the leaders began to nod in agreement. Let's do it, the British Prime Minister said. Full global cooperation. 3 weeks later, Earth's orbital shipyards were busier than they had ever been. Factories worldwide had pivoted to war production with astonishing speed. And most importantly, the distributed research approach was yielding results that stunned even its strongest supporters. On the bridge of the newly repaired Defiance, Captain Miller watched in amazement as workers installed new systems that hadn't existed a month ago. Is that the right shield generator? He asked Engineer Ross, who stood beside him. Ross nodded. Version 2.0 already. They've improved it twice since the initial design. Lieutenant Davis approached with a tablet. Captain, we've received our new orders from Admiral Stone. Miller took the tablet and read quickly, his eyebrows rising. They want us to lead a mission into Vorn territory for intelligence gathering. Apparently, the new stealth system makes us effectively invisible to Vorn sensors, Davis explained. It uses their own cloaking technology against them. Ross grinned. Like fighting fire with fire. Miller handed the tablet back to Davis. How soon can we depart? The final systems will be installed by tomorrow morning. We can leave immediately after. Miller turned to look at Earth through the viewport. The blue planet seemed smaller, more vulnerable than ever before. Then we'd better get ready. We need to know what we're really facing. The Defiance slipped silently through Vorn space, its modified cloaking system making it undetectable to enemy sensors. The crew worked in near darkness with systems powered down to minimum levels to avoid any energy signatures that might give them away. On the bridge, Captain Miller and Lieutenant Davis studied the data they were collecting from Vorn communications and sensor readings. Sir, Davis whispered, I think you should see this. She transferred data to the main screen, which showed a map of Vorn-controlled space. Miller's breath caught as he saw the scale. That can't be right, he said. This shows hundreds of star systems under their control. Davis nodded grimly. And look at these readings from inhabited planets. The biosignatures don't match Vorn physiology. Miller leaned closer. They're other species. Enslaved? It appears so, sir. We're picking up transmissions from at least 7 different non-Vorn species, all reporting to Vorn masters. Miller's face hardened. They're not just invaders. They're conquerors. They've been doing this for who knows how long. Sir, the communications officer called softly, we're intercepting high-priority Vorn military transmissions. They're dispatching their main invasion fleet to Earth, thousands of ships. Miller straightened. Record everything. We need to get this intelligence back to Earth immediately. As the Defiance carefully changed course to head home, Miller stared at the vast expanse of Vorn territory on the display. The situation was worse than they had imagined. Earth wasn't facing a simple border skirmish or resource conflict. They were up against an ancient empire that had been conquering and enslaving species for millennia. But now Miller understood something the Vorn didn't yet grasp. They had never faced an enemy like humanity before, and humanity now knew exactly what kind of threat they were fighting. Fleet Overlord Draz stood on the command platform of the inevitable conquest, the largest battleship ever constructed by the Vorn Empire. Around him stretched the vast invasion fleet, 3,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. The Armada represented nearly half of the Empire's total military might, a force that had conquered hundreds of worlds over millennia. "All ships report ready, Overlord," his second-in-command stated. Draz's 4 eyes surveyed the tactical display, showing their target the small blue planet called Earth. "Begin the assault standard conquest pattern." The massive fleet moved forward as one, entering faster-than-light travel for the short jump to the Sol system. "The humans have had time to prepare," Draz noted. But nothing could prepare them for this. Admiral Ben Stone stood in Earth's central command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the planet's defenses. Representatives from every major nation crowded around the circular command table. "The Defiance has confirmed it," Stone announced. "The Vorn invasion fleet has entered our detection grid. 3,000 ships approaching in formation." Murmurs spread through the assembled leaders. "How many ships do we have?" asked the Chinese admiral. 512 combat-ready vessels," Stone replied, "plus the orbital defense platforms." President Coleman stepped forward. "Are the defense platforms ready?" "Yes, Madam President. All 300 platforms are in position, disguised as debris or civilian stations. And the right shields installed on all major vessels and platforms. We've also equipped 80% of our ships with the new hybrid weapon systems." Coleman nodded and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, today humanity faces its greatest challenge. The Vorn believe their superior numbers guarantee victory. They think they understand what they're fighting." She gestured to a display showing Earth. "We're going to show them how wrong they are." Stone stepped up to the tactical display. "We will execute Operation Broken Mirror. Instead of spreading our forces evenly, we'll concentrate the fleet to protect these key areas." He highlighted several major population centers. "This will leave other regions seemingly undefended. The Vorn will interpret this as desperation," Coleman added. "They'll spread their forces to attack what they think are our weak points." Stone looked at each military leader in turn. "Once their fleet is committed and dispersed, we spring the bow trap." The Vorn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Fleet Overlord Draz studied the human defensive formation with disdain. "They've concentrated their ships around their major cities," he observed, "leaving the rest of their planet exposed." "A foolish strategy," his tactical officer commented. "No," Draz corrected. "A desperate one. They don't have enough ships to defend their entire world." He turned to his communications officer. "Order the fleet to spread out. Target pattern Omega. We will strike everywhere at once." As ordered, the Vorn Armada broke its tight formation, separating into hundreds of smaller attack groups that moved toward different regions of Earth. "Overlord," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures around the planet. Some appear to be coming from what our data classified as debris fields." Draz waved dismissively. "Sensor ghosts. The humans cannot hide their technology from us. Begin the attack." In Earth's command center, Admiral Stone watched as the Vorn fleet dispersed exactly as predicted. "They took the bait," he said. "All ships hold position. Wait for my mark." The Vorn attack groups moved closer to Earth, approaching what they believed were undefended regions. Stone's voice was calm. "Activate defense platforms." Across Earth's orbit, what had appeared to be space debris, derelict satellites, and civilian stations suddenly came to life. 300 heavily armed defense platforms hidden in plain sight, powered up their weapon systems. "Defense platforms online," a technician reported. "Target locks confirmed." Stone nodded. "Fire." On the inevitable conquest, alarms blared as reports flooded in from across the fleet. "Overlord, we're under attack from all sides," the tactical officer shouted. "Energy signatures are appearing throughout Earth orbit." Draz stared in disbelief as the tactical display showed hundreds of new weapon emplacements that hadn't been there moments before. His dispersed fleet was caught in devastating crossfire, with ships taking heavy damage before they could regroup. "It's a trap," he growled. Order all ships to reform defensive formations. But the confusion had already spread through the Vorn fleet. As attack groups tried to withdraw from the unexpected firestorm, they collided with reinforcement waves still moving forward. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "the human fleet is moving." On the tactical display, Draz watched as the Earth ships, previously holding position around population centers, now launched a coordinated attack against his fragmented forces. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now commanding a special task force of 20 ships. "All ships form up," he ordered. "Our target is the Vorn flagship. Execute attack plan Spear." The Defiance and its escort ships accelerated toward the massive Vorn command vessel, which sat at the center of a protective formation of heavy cruisers. "Sir," Lieutenant Davis reported from Tactical, "the flagship is heavily defended. Their shields are unlike anything we've encountered before." Miller nodded. "They're using their best technology now, but so are we." He turned to Engineer Ross. "Are the new weapons ready?" Ross grinned. "Yes, sir. The phase disruptors are charged and locked on target. Fire when ready." The Defiance and, its escort ships fired simultaneously. Brilliant beams of energy shifting through multiple phases struck the Vorn defensive screens. Where conventional weapons would have been absorbed, these beams passed through the shields as if they weren't there, striking the hull directly. "Direct hits," Davis shouted. "Their primary shield generators are down." Miller leaned forward. "All ships, concentrate fire on their engines. I want that flagship disabled, not destroyed." The task force pounded the massive Vorn vessel with precise fire. Despite its size and armor, the inevitable conquest began to drift, its main drives offline. "Sir," Davis said, "we've created a breach in their hull near the command center." Miller stood. "Prepare boarding teams. We're going in." Fleet Overlord Draz could not comprehend what was happening. Reports of disaster came from throughout his fleet. The orbital platforms were decimating his dispersed attack groups. The human fleet was tearing through his defensive formations with weapons that shouldn't exist. And now, his own flagship was crippled, drifting helplessly. "Overlord," his security chief called urgently, "we have a hull breach in Sector 7. Human forces are boarding the ship." Before Draz could respond, the bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came armored human soldiers, weapons ready. Behind them walked a single human in a captain's uniform. "Fleet Overlord Draz," Captain Miller said, his voice calm. "My name is Captain Jack Miller of the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is disabled, your fleet is in retreat. I'm here to accept your surrender." Draz stood to his full height, towering over the human. "The Vorn Empire does not surrender," Miller didn't flinch. "Look at your tactical display, Overlord. Your invasion has failed. You can either surrender and save the lives of your remaining crews, or we can continue this battle to its conclusion." For the first time in his long life, Draz felt uncertainty. He looked at the tactical display. More than half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The humans had outmaneuvered him at every turn. "How?" he asked finally. "How did a primitive species defeat the greatest empire in the galaxy?" Miller's expression remained neutral. "You scanned our ships, measured our weapons, and thought you knew what you were facing. But your scans couldn't detect our greatest strength. Which is, we adapt, we innovate, we cooperate." Miller stepped closer. "And most importantly, we fight hardest when cornered, yet offer mercy when victorious." Draz's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "Mercy? Surrender now, and no more of your people need to die today." After a long moment, Draz lowered his head. "I surrender my fleet." 1 week later, a formation of human ships escorted the defeated Vorn vessels to the edge of the solar system. On a dozen worlds throughout the galaxy, observers from other species watched the unprecedented sight, a Vorn armada in retreat. On an observation platform near Jupiter, President Coleman stood with Admiral Stone, watching the departure. "What do you think they'll tell their leaders when they return home?" Coleman asked. Stone's face was thoughtful. "That they encountered something they've never faced before. Not just ships and weapons, but a species that functions differently than any they've conquered. In the distance, the last Vorn ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel. On a nearby asteroid, two observers from an ancient species watched silently. One turned to the other, its crystalline body reflecting the distant sunlight. The scans were correct, it said in a language no human had yet heard. Their warships aren't just vessels of destruction. They carry something far more dangerous. Humans who fight hardest when cornered, yet offer mercy when victorious. The second being's response was solemn. The galaxy will never be the same. In Earth orbit, the Defiance rotated slowly, its battle scars now badges of honor. On the bridge, Captain Miller looked out at the stars, wondering what new challenges awaited humanity now that they had announced their presence to the galaxy in such dramatic fashion. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, with the same spirit that had turned certain defeat into unexpected victory.